plus I want to reduce my odds of getting cancer.
Excellent. That's a good one. So those are pretty powerful reasons to be here. And the good news is that this time, for our Fall Weight Loss Challenge, we are guaranteeing you results. So you have a 100% guarantee that you will get results during this 10 weeks. I have also good news. You're getting results right now. So you're getting the results right now from all the things that you've done before. So sometimes we talk about results, and I actually have to credit Elizabeth with this, because we were talking about people who get frustrated when they don't have results. But the thing is, we're all getting results. Like right now, we are reaping the results of all the things that we've already done. Whether that's exercise, whether that's food. I used to be a smoker. So all the things up until now, we are getting the results right now. So results mean that something that has happened as a consequence or an outcome. So right now, if you don't like the results that you're getting, then you need to do something that you haven't done yet. So that's where we come to our Plan A and Plan B. So Plan A is you keep getting the results that you have right now. Whatever that means. Maybe you're active, maybe you're not active, maybe you cheat a little bit on your diet, maybe you don't follow a diet plan at all. So if you don't like the results that you have at this moment, then I encourage you to try Plan B. And Plan B is literally to do something different. And you can do things a little bit different, or you can do things a lot different, but either way, you're going to get something different than what you've gotten before. But I hear a lot of folks who talk about the fact that I want to lose weight, but they seem to keep doing the same things over and over again. And so my challenge to y'all is, don't do the same things that you've been doing. Do something different, even if it's just a small change. And that's what I want y'all to focus on, is thinking about differences that you've done in the past and then things that you're going to do differently in the future. So, if you want to lose weight, there are some things that you're just going to have to accept. So if you can't accept 1 through 5 on this list, then you probably are not going to be successful in terms of losing weight over the next 10 weeks. So basically what it says is that you need to change the way that you're currently eating. Because again, the way that you are feeling, looking, health numbers are directly related to what you've been eating in the last few months, few years, and so you're going to have to make a change with that. Again, it can be a small change, and we'll talk about small changes, or it can be a huge change, and we'll talk about what that can look like. But you're going to have to change something about your eating in order to be successful. And then number 2 is, and this is a hard one for some people, you're going to have to say no to some things. So no may be like at the med school when I walked in unannounced a few weeks ago and everybody was eating a large sheet cake. And with the looks on their faces when I walked in, and they were like,
There's always food at the med school.
Exactly. There's always food. And so the look was like looking for someone else to blame. Like, this isn't my sheet cake. I don't know how this is. Yeah. So there will be times over the next 10 weeks that you're going to have to say no. So that may be to sheet cake in the office, or it may be to an unhealthy breakfast or an unhealthy dinner, or a second glass bottle of wine. So there may be a time where you're going to have to say no. Or say no to somebody like a social event when you say, no, I have to go work out today. I can't go to margaritas because I know that I'm going to go work out. So there will be things that you have to say no to. So get thinking about the people that you have to say no to in advance so you can plan for that. You will be uncomfortable. This is not a diet where you should be hungry. So if you are creating a diet and you feel hungry, you're doing it wrong, and talk to me and we'll make you not be hungry. Now there's a difference between being hungry and wanting things that you're not getting. So whenever you make a change, whether that's quitting smoking or starting to exercise or even saving money, there's going to be that discomfort level, because you're doing something that's new. So over the next 10 weeks, when you take things out of your diet, or you put them in, or you start doing more activity, you're going to be uncomfortable. That's just the bottom line. It's not going to kill you. You will not starve to death. I promise that it will get easier the more that you do it. And then finally, last 2, you need to make a plan. And we're going to talk about planning not only exercise, but also diet. It's a lot easier when you have a plan of attack, so you know what to eat, when you're going to eat, are you going to take your food, all that kind of stuff. It's a lot easier if you don't have to think as much, or if you do the thinking on the front end. And then last, you need to prioritize healthy eating and exercise. I heard once in a documentary that classified our current society as toxic. So we live in a toxic environment of fast food, sheet cake in the office, lots of ways that we can not be physically active. I mean, it's really easy just to not walk in the course of your day unless you have a specific reason to. So over the next 10 weeks, you're going to have to be a little bit obsessed. I'm not saying that this has to be your top priority. Obviously, we have family and jobs and all kinds of things. But this needs to kind of bump up a little bit in your priority list where it becomes more important than some of the other stuff, especially things like social occasions where you're going to eat nasty food. So just think about how important can I make this over the next 10 weeks. And I would encourage you to bump it up quite a bit. And then here are some things that on the handout that I gave you. And I should have encouraged you to think about barriers to physical exercise, which is what the purpose is, but also barriers to healthy eating. So a lot of the questions could have gone both ways. So if you look at one of these, so one of the questions is physical activity takes too much time away from other commitments. So we could easily substitute cooking, right, or meal planning. So eating healthy and shopping also takes time away from other things that you might rather do. Some things also that are in the same vein is, hey, come on, no, you're good, come in. You're good. You're fine. I'm going to give you this. We just got started, so you haven't missed much. So things like being busy. Being busy is often something that people feel like they don't have time to exercise, and people feel like, I hear all the time, I'm too busy to cook. I've got to get my son to soccer practice, I've got to get my daughter to lacrosse practice, I don't get home from work until 6. Who has time to cook a meal? And so part of what we're going to talk about, especially like the next week and two, is how do you meal prep in a way that makes sense and actually saves you time over the long term. And it doesn't mean that you have to be a 4-star cook. Is 4-star the best or is 5-star? 5. Don't even be a 4-star, let alone a 5-star. Things that are healthy and you can make and plan and your kids will actually eat. So think about that when you think about barriers. And the reason I handed this out is not actually for the quiz, which is useful, but it has some really good strategies listed for suggestions for overcoming. And again, it doesn't necessarily just mean physical activity. Just think about it as barriers to making healthy changes. So lack of time, we live in a world where a lot of us feel like we don't have enough time in the day. And so that can feel overwhelming about making time for more things. My massage therapist a while ago said, and I really liked it, he said we all have a bucket, and we put things in our bucket, and then we have to carry the bucket around. Well, at some point, the bucket becomes too much. We can't carry the bucket anymore. So to put more things in the bucket, we have to take some of the bucket out. And so that's what I would think. If you do feel like you don't have enough time, or you do feel busy, think about your bucket, and are there any pieces that you can take out? Some we can't take out, like family and job. I'm still waiting to win the lottery, however, so that may come through. But even when I do, I'll still come and we'll talk about weight loss. But in the meantime, you have things that have to stay in the bucket. But you can take some of the things out, maybe like a knitting group that maybe isn't necessarily that important for these 10 weeks, or some other social engagement or service just for this period of time so that you can focus on getting your health as your number 1 priority, or at least your top 5 priority. Social influence, hopefully y'all have good family and friends who want you to be healthy. I think probably that's why we're all here, we want to be healthy. And so hopefully you guys have people in your family that you can say, these are the changes I'm going to make, and they can be supportive. So if you don't, I have heard over the years, unfortunately, of some people who have like a spouse or a family member that may not be as supportive. Try to find people who you can talk to. You have a good group here. We have 65 people in challenge. If you ever have an issue, send me a question and I can send it out to the whole group. Hey, does anybody want to take a walk at lunch? Does anybody want to get together and have a healthy lunch? So you do have a support system in each other. And I would encourage you to talk to your family and friends about what you're going to do so it doesn't sound like a complete surprise when you turn down sheet cake and, Miss Sally, who made the sheet cake, is mad at you because she didn't know you were trying to lose weight. So have conversations and seek out people who do the same things. Lack of energy, I will say that will take care of itself. Eating better, exercising more will increase your energy, even though it's going to feel like it makes you tired in the beginning. And then lack of resources, that's not an issue for y'all. You have the resources of each other, of me, of wellness, so I hope that you will take advantage. If you have questions at any time, I'm not giving you my cell phone number because I don't feel like you need to call me in the middle of the night for a wellness emergency. But within reason, call me and we'll figure out how to cook healthier, make diet changes, get more exercise. So feel like you have the resources you need. If anyone travels, I know Samantha has a busy travel schedule as a coach. The list has some good strategies for ways to either get more exercise, and we'll talk about planning for food when you're traveling as well. And then family obligations. I know a lot of us have church and big families and those things that take a lot of time, and sometimes we don't have a lot of control over what's being prepared. So we'll talk some strategies about that as well. So communication is the name of the game when it comes to barriers. I hear kind of in the same vein people who feel like they don't have control. So these two quotes are from a website called impossiblehq.com. He does a lot of different things. He has some challenges that he does, and he's pretty interesting. He's an entrepreneur. Part of what he talks about is fitness, and part of it is how to develop different small business plans. But one of the ones that I really like is the first one, which says, no matter what happens around you, your body is the one thing that you have 99% control of 100% of the time. And I think that for me was a really valuable thing. I used to be overweight. I was about 60 pounds heavier than I am right now. And so for me, I always felt out of control because I went out a lot. When I first graduated from college, I went to happy hours, and I went out to dinner, and I never packed my lunch, and so my habits were terrible. But I didn't feel like I had control because everywhere I went, there wasn't really a healthy option. So the biggest change for me was to realize that I don't have to eat anything that I don't want to. Even if Miss Mary and Miss Carol say, Rachel, would you like a piece of cake? And I say, I really don't want a piece of cake. And what if Miss Mary, she's like, Rachel, I made this cake from scratch. It's my mama's recipe back from when I was a little girl, and it's going to hurt my feelings. And I can still say no. I've been alive for 36 years. No one has ever force-fed me a piece of cake or a burger or fries, although my mother did wash my mouth out with soap at least twice that I remember. So other than that, no one is going to force you to eat anything. And so once you learn to say no, and realize that you are the only person who's responsible for putting food in your mouth, that can be a good feeling. So you do have control, and it's kind of an invigorating thing because we don't have control over a lot of our lives. Work and family, there's always another person or people who are in that equation about whether you're successful. But here, you have 100% control over your body and what you put in your mouth. So I think that's exciting. In a world of very little control, you can control this. And then I hear a lot of people talking about motivation. It's like, I'm not motivated to lose weight, or I'm not motivated to go to the gym, or I am motivated, but then 2 weeks later they're not motivated again. So the key that I really focus on is not worrying about motivation. You guys wrote down some great reasons why you're here, and that's important as to why you get started. But the thing that keeps you going is not motivation, because motivation is going to go like this. And a lot of times it's down here. But it just means that you're going to focus on discipline. So what are the things that you're going to do every single day to make you be successful, whether you want to or not? That's the good thing about discipline is you don't have to think about it. You just kind of cultivate a habit, and then you don't have to worry if you're motivated or not, because you're just going to make it as part of a habit. And that sounds really easy, but the only way to actually do it is just get started and do it every single day. So we'll talk a little bit about habits, which can be the hardest part of making either a good change or cutting back a bad change. But the best thing you can do is work on it every single day. So that's kind of the getting started, getting your plan together. Now the next part is, and this is from the podcast, but I want to give you guys an opportunity to do the math. Has anyone had a chance to set up their MyFitnessPal account yet? Okay, I think most people probably already had one. If you didn't, if you have your phone with you, you can set it up as we go, or you'll have your number, so when you get to a place where you have a chance to set up your account, you can just plug these numbers in. So the first thing you want to do is find how active you are. So this is the number that we're going to use in order to figure out how many calories that we're going to plug in as our initial goal. So do keep in mind you can do a 0.5. So say that you are between an 11 and a 12. So you can do an 11.5, and that's totally fine. I think I mentioned in the podcast, be more conservative than more aggressive. So, if you're like, well, I work out for an hour 5 days a week, and, maybe I walk the dog, so maybe I get like 6.5 hours, be conservative with your choice. It's always good to go down a half as opposed to up a half as when we're thinking about losing weight. So you have 11, 12, 13, or 14. I don't think we have any 14s in here. Raise your hand if you're a 14. Okay, good. Because I'm not a 14 and I would feel really bad about myself, and then I'd have to go run or something. So I don't want to do that, I don't like running. Alright, so now that you have your number, we're going to figure out your current weight. Hopefully everybody knows and remembers from their weigh-in. And then you're going to take your weight in pounds and multiply it by whatever that number was. So if you're 150 pounds and your number was 11, what is that? 15, 55? I don't know. It's bad at math. So whatever that number is, that's the number that you need to maintain your current weight. So if you want to maintain your current weight, that's the number that you're going to use. But I don't think anyone wants to maintain their current weight because that's why you're here. So then you're going to subtract between 250 and 500 from that number. But I would encourage you to only subtract 250, with the exception of Hiram, because as a gentleman, he could probably do a little bit more. So he could probably do like 350. I don't want him to go crazy over there. He does have a little bit of a genetic advantage when it comes to weight loss. So that's going to be the number that is going to be your goal, a rough estimate for how many calories that you should aim for per day. Now, what's everybody's initial thought when you see that number?
That's a lot.
I know, isn't that great? So, again, this is a diet that you should not feel hungry. Now, this is a starting place, because what we want to focus on is not just the calories, but where your calories are coming from. So almost everybody gets into this like, man, that's a lot of calories. Most women are thinking, I need 1,200 calories, right? If you want to lose weight, isn't that everybody? Oh, I need 1,200 calories. I eat 3,000 calories a day. And granted, I'm fairly active, but I only work out for about 90 minutes a day. I'm not running. I'm not doing any kind of marathoning. I eat a lot. And so I want y'all to eat for your goals. And for all of you, it's probably going to be about, or maybe even a little more to start with, what you're currently eating. And the reason that we're going to talk about the reason why calories are not the be-all, end-all is because we want them to come from the right places. So after you get your MyFitnessPal set up, what you're going to do is change it so it looks like this. So on your MyFitnessPal, if you go to goals, then you're going to plug it in, then you're going to go to nutrition goals. Then you're going to take that number, the one that you just have written down, and you're going to make that your calorie goal for your diary. And then it's going to give you a little drop down. Actually, why don't I teach by doing? So here is mine. So if I go to home, and I go to goals, and of course it'll look a little bit different if you use the phone app, but the same format is true. It'll just look a little different on your phone. So then it says daily nutrition goals, and then you're going to click edit. And then this top one where it says calories is where you're going to put your goal number, and then you're going to switch it, and it's going to be 40% carbs, 30% protein, and 30% fat. This is your starting point. Does anyone have a question? Yes, Wendy.
What if you do better on a diet that is lower carb?
That's a very good question. And some people have had great results. Oh, I did Atkins. Oh, I did, South Beach, and I had really good results. I would encourage you to try this first. And that's not to say that we can't adjust it as time goes on. In fact, we will adjust it. But I would say start here and then make adjustments as you go. Because if you start, so say I move my carbs down to 25% and I adjust the other stuff, then I don't have much wiggle room to make changes as I go because my carbs are already really low. So I would say start a little higher and then make adjustments throughout. So that would be my suggestion. And again, if in a month from now your weight loss is not where you want it, we go back and we switch these numbers and we switch the calories. So again, this is your starting place. Does this make sense to everybody? Mm-hmm. All right. I just briefly, before we kind of talk about the why, if you don't keep a diet journal, you will not be as successful than if you did. Bottom line. Research supports this. Many studies show that even if y'all get the same, do the Weight Watchers, everybody comes, they get the information, they're like, oh yeah, I understand, I need to cut back on this and eat more veggies. Even if everybody had the same information, people who do their diet journal versus people who don't lose twice as much weight. So I know it's a pain in the butt. I know that you don't like tracking. I know a couple people who really like tracking. Most people don't like tracking and find it to be a pain in the butt. I get it, but it's really important. And it's not something you have to do every single day for the rest of your lives. I would just encourage you to do it every day for the next 10 weeks. Once you get into the habit of it, it becomes less of a pain in the butt. If you have a smartphone, it even has a barcode scanner so that you can easily add foods that if they have a label. There's literally a million different food options. So if you eat out, there will be something that's in there. I love J. Christopher's on Saturdays. And so there's even, you can populate from menus with the Google search or with the search bar. So it's a pain in the butt, but it's worth it. And it's one of those things about making your weight loss a priority. It's one of those things, if you're like, oh, this just isn't important, I can't take the time to log my food, you're probably not making your weight loss a priority. And that's okay, but you're just not going to be as successful as if you would. It's not forever, it's just over the next 10 weeks. So the reason, or one of the reasons why that we set it up like this is that we have been shown from research that when we lose weight, when we go on a weight loss diet, that the best way to lose fat and minimize how much muscle we lose is to make sure that we're getting adequate protein. And so for women, the lowest amount of protein that is recommended for good health is 56 grams per day. So the research is pretty clear that we need at least twice as much of that if we want to have a really good weight loss diet. So as a general rule, think about that, is that most women need at least 100 grams of protein per day. So that's one of the things that I'd like for you to look at when you look at your diet journal. Am I hitting at least 100 grams of protein? And based on your numbers, depending on what your calories are, it may be a little bit higher than that by 20, 30, maybe more grams. So the other thing is that, number two, when we hear about carbs are terrible, right? Can't eat bread, can't eat potatoes, can't eat fill in the blank. Carbs are good and we need them, especially when it comes to energy, having good memory and feeling good, and then also for exercise so we have enough energy to actually go out and walk with our family or friends. So carbs are not terrible. The exception being if you have diabetes, in which case you would probably want to bring that number down a little bit. Carbs are still not bad if you're diabetic. It just means you need to focus on healthier, slower releasing ones and maybe bring them down a little bit. So if you are diabetic, you may want to switch the 40% and drop that to about 30 or 35 and then move up your fat a little bit. So just keep that in mind. But again, 40% is not a ton. And then last but not least is fat. Fat has been vilified, for the last 30 years. And a lot of times we think, oh, I need a low-fat diet because it's healthy. So I'm going to get low-fat Pringles, or I'm going to get low-fat Oreos, or I'm going to get low-fat fill-in-the-blank. Fat is really good. And there was actually, I don't know, is anyone an NPR listener in here? No one? Okay, that's fine. So just yesterday, a new study was published that said perhaps the research that kind of shifted the way that we think about fat over the last 30 years, which is mainly that fat is bad and is responsible primarily for heart attack, heart disease, high cholesterol, may not be true. So that the research that was used to come up with our food guidelines actually was in large part conducted by and sponsored by the sugar industry. And so that they used and tweaked research data in order to make it sound like fat was more responsible for heart disease than sugar was. And so that in part may be why we have this kind of low-fat thing that we still have. So my point is, don't panic when you start to see a bunch of fat in your diet. Peanut butter is your friend. Does anyone not like peanut butter? Okay, good. We're all friends now. So, yes, Hiram?
Finished my eyes, but it looks like in that graph, carbs at 40 and proteins at 30.
Correct.
So you want more carbs than protein?
Correct. So 30% of your total diet is about how much protein your body can really utilize. So if you could make protein, if you put it at 35 or 40, you're literally gonna pee it out. So the only high protein diets aren't dangerous as a general rule unless somebody has an underlying health condition such as like a kidney problem, in which case you may have issues because the kidneys can't properly excrete as much protein as you're eating. So high protein diets aren't usually dangerous, but there's no real benefit in getting more than what your body can utilize. And that's about 30%. You could go lower, you could do 25, but 30 for our purposes is kind of where we want to get started. Because my prediction is that most of you guys will not be even close to hitting your protein number. That's my prediction. When you guys start logging, I would imagine that you're probably going to be like half on a good day for your protein. So don't worry about going too high. So this, again, we went through how to edit. And then here at the bottom, and I'll pull up my real one here, is the way I want you to kind of attack the food journal if you can do best case scenario. So best case scenario for logging your food is to do it either A, in advance, which is the best thing you can do, because then you're going to be able to manipulate your numbers throughout the course of the day, or to log after every time that you eat. So down at the bottom, what you can see is the goals here are the things that I plugged in originally. So as I go through my day, it's going to add up and tell me what I've eaten, protein, fat, carbs, calories. And you can see it does break it down by meal. The app doesn't do that. So the app gives you the running total, but it doesn't break it down per meal. So just when you go on, if you use your phone, it'll look a little bit different. So then throughout the course of the day, what I think about this is a checking account. So if I'm trying to hit that number by the end of the day, how much do I have to put in order to reach my goal? The same thing as you can think about it as a deduction. So if I start with, say I start with 2,500, I get 500 for breakfast, blah, 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 blah. And at the end of the day, my numbers should be pretty close to there. You will likely, I think I have hit my numbers within like 3 times. So don't feel like you're going to have to get it exact because you just won't. Every time I've done it, which has been like 3 times, I've sent like a screenshot to Elizabeth or somebody else. I'm like, look at my numbers! My numbers are perfect! And it's like 3 times. So don't feel like if you're not at these numbers failing. Just try to work towards getting them close, and let close be good enough. So I would say if you're within, a couple hundred calories total, 250 maybe, consider that an A+ day. If you're a little bit off that, consider that a B. And if you just completely missed the mark, consider that a C, because at least you logged. So that's better than, an F. Participation points, for sure. And so with the carbs, fat, and protein, focus on the protein. So you're going to notice, anybody in here like a cereal eater for breakfast? Samantha, okay. That's not wrong. Cereal is not wrong. I'm not about to throw her under the bus. But, and you're also going to notice, unless you're eating a protein source for breakfast, it's really easy to start your day with like 7 or 10 grams. And then if your goal for me is 188 grams, I'm going to be in a real bad shape to try to make that up for the rest of the day. So think about breaking down your protein. So do your math when you plug in your numbers. So average out how many times a day you eat. So if you eat 4 times, 3 meals and a snack, say, divide your total grams of protein by how many times you eat, and let that be your goal for each meal. The carbs and fat usually kind of take care of themselves, but protein is going to require some focus. And if that seems overwhelming, if you look at your number and your number is 130 grams of protein, and right now you're getting 60, then have 100 grams be your goal to start with. And that should be manageable. If you eat 4 times, that's 25 grams per meal. So that's why the where is important, where it's coming from. Because almost all of us, when we plug this in, our protein will be very low and our carbs will be very high. That's almost all of us, because we really like carby stuff. I had someone tell me one time, and I love her, she said, "You don't understand, I really like French toast." And I was like, everybody likes French toast. There's no one on earth who doesn't like French toast. So if you're going to have French toast, you better have some eggs to go with it. So that's our summary. So that's the best way that I know to kind of figure out what you're eating and what to work towards. You're not going to get it perfect. Let good enough be your A+. The other thing, what was I going to mention? We talked about protein, we talked about that. First few days, let this be data collection. So start to think about things that you might want to change. Number 1, if you're a soda person, that junk has got to go. Soda is absolute garbage. If you can make one change over the next 10 weeks, if you're a soda person, and you did that, you would be way better off than you are right now. So other than that, start thinking about healthy changes that you can make. But over the next, today is Wednesday, so over the remainder of this week, log and just notice how close you are to your numbers. So think to yourself, yeah, I want to make healthy choices, but don't think about yourself as on a diet. Just look and see how close am I to those daily numbers, because that's going to let you guide you moving forwards. So if you're really high on fat, you know that next week you're going to have to trim down on fat. If you're really low on protein, you're going to have to find better protein sources. So let that be your guide. And don't get angry, don't get frustrated if your numbers are way off, because again, that's a reflection of what you've been doing, and now we're going to change it and do something different. So gather data. We're all in higher education. Probably some of us have different relationships with data, but if you don't have evidence, everything is going to be a guess. So gather your evidence. Did anybody have a chance to watch the BBC video of the documentary? It's worth watching. It's a lady, she's British, and she's a larger lady, and she goes into a lab, and they're interviewing her, and she says, "Well, I'm here because I have very slow metabolism, and so I want you, the scientists, to tell me how slow my metabolism is." And so they put her in this, they give her a meal that they already know the calories for, and then they put her in this hood, and so they can tell through her expiration how many what her rate of burning calories is. So then, the lady's sitting there, and she's feeling really confident, and the scientist says, your metabolism is exactly what we would think for someone of your age and weight and all that. And so she says, "You mean I don't have slow metabolism?" And she said, "No, you don't." And so she has this kind of look of like, well, that's interesting. So then they encourage her to keep a diet journal. So they tell her to video everything that she eats for 1 week, and then write down everything that she eats for 1 week. So So she does this, and then she comes back, and they look at it, and she says that she's had about 1,200 calories. So then they have this really cool stuff that you ingest it, and then you urinate, and they can tell exactly how many calories you've consumed and how many calories you've burned. So they do this. Any guesses on how many she had?
3,000.
3,000.
Oh my gosh.
So that's a huge difference, right? She thinks she's eating 1,200 calories, and she's actually eating 3,000 calories, and so now we know why maybe she's not at a weight that she really likes. So my encouragement also to you is to be as accurate as you can with your diet journal, because it's really easy to say, oh, that was about a half a cup or whatever. So try to be accurate, and if you haven't used a measuring cup this decade, use a measuring cup until you can eyeball it more accurately. It is a real sad day when you get out your measuring cup and you measure out your cereal and you put it in your bowl. Like, it's a real sad day. So do that, and then in a week or so you won't need the measuring cup because you'll be able to know what that looks like. But be honest, because you don't want to be like our friend who's eating 3,000 calories and still is quite certain she's eating 1,200. So let your diet journal work for you. Because I don't care what you put in your diet journal. You shouldn't care what goes in there. You should just make it accurate so you can make changes. So that's kind of what I have. Is everybody leave and go set up a diet journal? Oh, as a reminder, if you haven't, you can add me on MyFitnessPal. It's Ray, RAYLNAY. And so you can check me out. I log every day but Saturday, because I don't want you to see how much I drink. Oh wait, dang it, that was 5. So, but any other day you can go on and see, not that I have a perfect situation, but you can at least get ideas, especially with protein, because I always eat my protein. So you can get some ideas. And similarly, if you want me to look at yours, you can make it so friends see it, and I can look at your journal. We can email or call or whatever and get some ideas.